This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. Guys, you know it's more refreshing and cooler than that ice-cold beer while you sit there and mow the lawn? Definitely not you if you're running around in this heat, in that office, wearing that stuffy, smelly, pit-stained dress shirt that's wrinkled to the high heavens. Don't worry now. Uncle Jock's got you covered, or should I say Larry Hunt's got you covered, with their moisture-wicking, anti-odor, breathable 4-way stretch 100% cotton dress shirt that will keep you cool like the other side of the pillow. Look, guys, I've been wearing mine for some time now, and I absolutely love them. They keep me cool, dry, fresh-looking all day long, so I can handle some business during the day and then head out and tear up the night while still looking fresh and clean. On top of it, this is probably the best part. The shirt is made, designed, and crafted by Detroiters in Detroit. See all the incredible styles Lawrence Hunt has to offer? Head over to lawrencehuntfashion.com. That's lawrencehuntfashion.com. If you use promo code DSP, guess what? We'll save you 20% off your order. That's right, 20%. If you don't believe me, listen to Detroit Tigers catcher James McCann.
I'm a jeans and boots kind of guy, and taking my wife out to eat, I love putting on my Lawrence Hunt dress shirt. The way they stretch, the way they feel, they move with my body just like a t-shirt would. I know that I'm wearing a dress shirt, but it really doesn't feel like it.
That's lawrencehuntfashion.com.
Detroit is the greatest! Straight up light you on fire for a coney dog right now.
Darren McCarty comes back to Neiman in front of him. McCarty draws. McCarty in. McCarty scores! He makes it a goal! Darren McCarty!
Stafford takes, throws, end zone, Calvin, touchdown Detroit Lions!
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Motor City Sports Rant on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. I am Jason Jarvie. Follow me on Twitter at Jarvie the King. Sitting across from me, as always, for another week, I'm back, but he's back also. It's John Macaroon. How's it going, bud?
It's great to see you. I'm glad everything worked out. Listen, when you're not here at the studio, I miss you, but it provided me an opportunity to just sit in front of the microphone, just let it rip for 30 minutes, did the Motor City Sports Rant last week by myself. Did you get a chance to listen like I'd asked?
I listened to about 20 minutes of it. It was pretty good. I got to give you credit. You did a pretty good job. But
you can't teach that!
But you know what you can teach is fantasy football. And I have to bring this up. Once again, you asked me for a second straight year to draft a fantasy football team for you.
Listen, sometimes when you're in a league and it's not in your control, all you ask is like, hey, give me some time. And so initially, this league was set to draft the weekend of Labor Day. And all of a sudden, everyone started complaining they couldn't do it. 6 to 7 people were saying that they were going to auto-draft. So the commissioner was like, can we change the time? And so I just now started to listen to your podcast in full with details, the Fantasy Nerds podcast, which comes out every Friday on this very network. I was getting my research in order, but then some things started happening. I just wasn't ready. So I'm like, you know what? Just help a brother out. And, you were a little bit slow to answer. So I had a guy that helped me out before, and he took care of it. And my team is pretty nice. I'm not going to lie. Co-general managing is not a bad way to go if you're in a league that drafts early.
Yeah, but you lose all the glory, every glory. If you win this league, you didn't put this team together. That's my biggest thing is in the league that I've been in forever, we haven't had it where a guy who's missed has actually won the championship. He's made it to the finals, but if ever it came to a point where a guy who did not draft his team makes it and wins the championship, I would be so upset. I'd be so disheartened.
Well,
and I can't imagine how the other person would feel, especially if they were in the same league. The guy that drafted for you is in that league, isn't he?
No,
he's not.
No, he's not in that league.
Okay, well, you're lucky.
Yeah. So, and I was reinforced last year because I got all the way to the finals. I took the money split. I remember what we did. Now, when we got to the final game, we decided to split up the money evenly, and I did end up losing the final game eventually. So I didn't get the title of winning. But in essence, for me, fantasy football is about money. And just real quickly before we start talking about the Tigers and Lions and Michigan State, Are you concerned at all about the new NFL injury rule change where they go, hey, now I'm like, oh, shoot, because it affects me directly in that when they remove the word probable from the injury report, now we got to look a little closer because if someone's questionable, we got to look like pay attention right up until the game. And I'm like, God darn it. I mean, probable made it easy because that was a guy when they had a P next to his name, you probably would start in fantasy. Now that they took it away, you got to actually pay attention right up until game time and wait until those reporters tell you who's on the injury list for the week.
Yeah, I did just start looking into this, and I think it could either be really good or I think I'm leaning more towards that it's going to be a hassle, and it's really going to be a hassle for fantasy football fans. It obviously it's not for fantasy football fans. It's for the NFL. But we're the guys who are we're putting money on our leagues. They don't care. But whatever. I'm gonna dive a little bit more into it in the Fantasy Nerd Show. But yeah, it's a really big deal. You always figured when you saw that little P, meaning probable, that your player was going to he's good to go. Tom Brady, I think I saw a stat that out of all the games, almost 50% of them, he's been listed as probable, and he's played every single one of those. There's the occasional case where somebody's probable and then they don't end up playing, or maybe they play one series and then they're out for the rest of the game. It was always nice to have there was kind of a percentage play. With probable, you figured it's a pretty good chance. Maybe there's a 25% chance that they don't play. Going down to questionable, it's a 50-50 shot. And then doubtful, it's 75% that they're not going to play. So I think that it almost combines the probable into the questionable. So if there's any doubt that they might not play, they're going to show up on the injury report. And you just may see everybody listed as questionable.
See, NFL, not fan-friendly. They're not even making it where they're not
No
even,
fun league.
No fun league. The NFL's got a ton of issues right now, and this is just something that, again, is probably going to be bad PR, and maybe they'll correct it, and maybe they'll change it back, but we'll end up seeing it. So this last weekend, I end up going to the Tigers game Friday night, take the wife out for a date. She's like, we haven't been out in a while. You're working, you're doing the podcast, you're doing a bunch of different things. Let's go out. I'm like, okay, no problem. Get the tickets. We sit in the first, second row upper deck in the 300 section. I was a little disappointed because we were pretty much in a section filled with Boston fans. So I'm like, oh, man, okay, it's no problem. They were, they had the accent. They were really excited to see David Ortiz, really excited to see the guys, do their thing. And, of course, David Ortiz hits a home run. But I had an experience where it really hasn't happened to me too often, but my wife was real annoyed. We sat behind those fans that talked the entire game. And I was like, seriously? It really never happened to me at a baseball game. I get what you're doing. You're going there to conversate. It was a beautiful night. You get a couple in you. You get to relax and stuff. But literally a constant flow of conversation about Boston, about the Tigers, about this, about that, for the entire stream of 8 innings. My wife at that point, after the 8th inning, was like, we're busting out of here. We're going down to a different section. We went down to a different section. The lady was still talking. We could hear her, but it was much more quiet. And I didn't know how irritated I was until we actually moved. But my goodness, a talker can actually ruin your experience at a baseball game.
Dude, it's the worst. And I get it. It's a free country. You can go and talk whenever. And I can forgive it a little bit at baseball because it is an open air stadium. If you can tune it out, you can watch the game. But yeah, if the voice is grating enough, it'll eat into you. I know I've had bad experiences at movie theaters. That's where it's the worst because you're going to watch this movie theater and you're trying to listen, and if you have somebody talking behind you, that's the worst. But yeah, that gets on my nerves, and for my wife as well. It really gets on her because she's like, it's almost like sensory overload.
Now, personally, if it was a Detroit fan, I think I might have been more willing to turn around and just be like, hey, man, can you guys just kind of ease it up a little bit for at least a half an inning? My goodness. But it was Boston fans. They seemed like they were enjoying the ambiance. I wasn't going to say nothing. I kind of tuned it out a little bit. But should I have turned around and just said, hey, watch the game, pipe down, be quiet? Have you ever done that? Confronted someone?
No, I will be passive aggressive. If somebody, I will be completely passive aggressive. I will make comments that are towards like the field, but it'll be clearly directed at them. Maybe even I'll clap really, really loud And especially if I have an instance where they're in front of me instead of behind me. If there's, I'll be like, yeah, go Tigers, go. Or if I'm at the Lions, go Lions, yeah. And
You're a dick.
I try to get back at them without them really knowing.
See, I wanted to, but I'm entering into a phase of my life now where I'm like, I want to be more assertive. But in the end, I enjoyed the game. Of course, Fulmer's going along. I got literally, you know how many texts I got? You're a jinx. About 12. 12 people of my friends watched Fulmer perform and get rocked by Boston. And everyone's blaming me for going to the game, having a good old time, because it was Fulmer's worst performance. But you got to give Boston credit. They studied the film. They knew the fastball was coming, and they turned on it. But let me tell you something. David Ortiz, I understand a little bit why the fans have ultimate respect for him, but we'll talk about that a little bit later in this podcast about the ceremony that they did over the weekend to honor David Ortiz. But my goodness, his swing is so effortless, flawless, and that home run that he hit crushed it out of Comerica. And they, Friday night's game, it was nice to see the fireworks, but in terms of on the field, they dominated us start to finish, and it was an interesting series. One that where I said I knew it was going to be pretty much a 2-2 series, and it ended up being a split. But it was an interesting series in that you're starting to see maybe if guys come back and if certain guys perform at the level you expect, hey, they may even earn you back on the bandwagon. You were saying that you were this close, millimeters close of jumping back on the bandwagon. What happened?
So the last time we had the podcast, which was about 2 weeks ago, I was still on the fence, and I started seeing signs that the Tigers might actually be able to make a go of this. Then all the injuries happen. Then the losing streak happens. I have a hard time. I'm not gonna fully get on board. I really hope that I'm wrong. I've said all along that they're an average team. And right now they're 10 games over 500. Or no, they're not even 10 games over 500. They're 6 games over 500. So there's so much possibility that they still could be in the chase for the wild card. But nothing that I've seen them do leads me to believe that they're going to, they can do this the rest of the season. I think if they're going to actually win that wild card spot, they're going to have to win at least 75% of their games.
Exactly. Now, I don't agree with Vinny Stubbs too often, but he did make a great point on his last edition of the Vinny Stubbs Show. And he said there's a team right now that's currently on an 8-game win streak you got to pay attention to, and that's the Royals. They're playing a good brand of baseball. You're going to play them again in September, but you got to be careful because not only do you got to worry about the couple teams that are ahead of you in the wild card race, a la Boston, Baltimore, Seattle, but you got to worry about the couple teams behind you that are starting to play a little bit better. Houston and Kansas City are both sitting at 64 and 60, and their play as of late has been improved. So not only do you got to worry about catching the teams in front of you, you got to keep up a strong level of performance to, fend off the teams that are chasing you.
I don't think it's even outside of the realm of possibility that the Yankees could even make a push. You have three of those teams, the Royals, Astros, and the Yankees, are all 64 or 63 and 60. So they're like 3.5 or 4 games back. It's going to be a very tight race. And unless some of these teams drop off, it's going to come down to the final series.
Now, do you give Brad Ausmus credit for finally realizing Justin Upton was struggling so much, and like he's done in the past with other guys that have struggled, he sits them down for a couple days? Now, we all said, hey, man, it's been a little bit too late after the All-Star break. He went a stretch of time where a significant stretch of time where he didn't sit. But finally, he got into a mode, and he said, okay, Justin Upton, you're going to either come in the 8th inning to pinch hit, and finally got a couple days off. And then he came back Saturday with a strong performance. And then what we saw on Sunday, Justin Upton had 2 home runs, 6 RBIs, and you saw, okay, if this guy is a shell of the guy that had performed in the previous 4 to 5 years, 20-plus home runs, 100-plus RBIs, then this guy could really contribute to this team. And so I go, well, is this a sign of the times for Justin Upton? Is he maybe on the uprise, or is just something where you go, listen, you got to pump the brakes. You got to be easy with this because it's just one game versus a pitcher that wasn't that good anyway.
Yeah, I'd take the latter. You got to pump the brakes. There's no way, unless I'm completely wrong. There's no way. It's only one game. let's look at Justin Upton's. Let's look at his game log over the last couple. You have 2 for 4, 2 home runs, 6 RBIs, 2 for 4, walk, 0 for 1, 0 for 3, 0 for 4, 0 for 3, 1 for 5, 0 for 4, 0 for 4, 0 for 7, 1 for 3, 1 for 2, 0 for 4, 0 for 4, 2 for 4, 0 for 3, 2 for 4. The dude has only hit more than once in 1, 2, 3, 4 games in the month of August. It's not good, man. I'm just looking, I'm going by what I see from the numbers. And unless this is the absolute turnaround that he finally figured it out, and from here on out, all we're going to see is 2 for 4 nights, 3 for 4 nights out of him, then we're probably going to see what we saw of Justin Upton from the beginning of the season.
Hey, he got a chance to speak to David Ortiz before the Sunday performance, and hey, maybe he was touched by a Hall of Famer. Maybe just told him to relax or chill out, or maybe give him a little boost of confidence. But you're right, we have to see it more. I think that's great that the Tigers have a day off on Monday before their series versus Minnesota, and it's very important that when you play these teams like the White Sox, Minnesota, teams that are struggling, you got to do some damage, and you have a lot of things potentially that could go right for you. In terms of being hopeful, hey, if you get Zimmerman back, if you are able to maybe get a little bit more consistency from Anibal Sanchez and the youngsters, the young starting staff can turn it around maybe, then you say, well, if Nick Castellanos comes back stronger, if Cameron Maybin can come back stronger, his performance was decent, Sunday, then you go, well, this team could actually turn it around.
You know what I don't see from this team, though, is I don't see those magical wins. Because in those runs that we've had in the past with the Tigers, there are games where you're just like, I can't believe they did that. And I think the closest we got was the JD Martinez home run game. Just this last week, you saw the Indians win on a walk-off inside the park home run. That's stuff of magic. That stuff doesn't happen unless it's a team of destiny. There's nothing I've seen of the Tigers having that.
So you're saying that really, in all honesty, in all truth, the Tigers might have to just back in and hope that Cleveland collapses and you play around 500 ball and you see what happens.
Yeah,
and really, if you can defeat Cleveland 4 of 7, 5 of 7 times, and they collapse at the end, I think that's probably a better way to go, is to hope for a Cleveland collapse, because what you're seeing with the Tigers is exactly right. You're seeing about a 500 ball club that's going to split versus the teams that are really consistent, and they're going to maybe eventually, you can't go into a series versus Minnesota and say, hey, we're going to dominate. We've played well against them, but you've seen series where you thought, okay, we're playing well, and they go and they get swept.
And it's really going to come down to how we can do against the Central. We have 38 games left, and only 9 of those games are against teams outside of the Central. So it's really going to come down to how we play against the Twins, the Indians, the Royals, the White Sox. Can we beat those guys? I mean, what's our record against the Indians? We got 1 win against them, right?
I believe it's 1-10, 1-11.
So we're literally going to have to turn that all around. And so about 29 games against the AL Central, you're going to have to win at least 20 of those. At least 20 of those games to win.
And then you got the big question marks are, is JV going to be consistent? Is Michael Fulmer going to be, utilized the rest of the way, or is he going to be significantly limited? Or let me ask you this. Michael Fulmer gets rocked by Boston. Are you concerned the rest of the way that this is the sign of the times, or do you go, okay, it's an aberration. He's still 10-4. Do you say, well, are you a little bit nervous that Michael Fulmer performed that way against a quality AL team?
I want to see Fulmer go the rest of the month of August and see what he does. He's slated right now. He's going to pitch against Minnesota. He's going to pitch against the White Sox. And those are 2 relatively easy outings, or at least I would think so. If he's still pretty decent and he kind of returns to form, then I think you're good to go the rest of the year. But if there is, maybe he gives up 4 or 5 runs, maybe we still win. But I think that's when you're going to have to start thinking about maybe shutting him down, especially if we're out of the wild card race at any point.
I agree with you 100%. I think Michael Fulmer has good stuff, but I was really relatively surprised that Michael Fulmer tried to attack Boston with his fastball. they're a great fastball hitting team, and I believe that he didn't make the proper adjustments from the last time they pitched. The last time the Tigers pitched versus Boston, they really sat on some fastballs, and they were able to just crush them. And that's what they would do. That's what you saw all weekend, that Boston wasn't really overmatched too much by our pitching staff, and you saw Daniel Norris make that adjustment relatively quickly after he got dinged around. He started throwing some more off-speed stuff, and I tweeted out on our Twitter page, @Detroit Podcast, I didn't think that I was surprised it took that long to make an adjustment to throw off-speed stuff to Boston. And so I just think maybe the game plan wasn't as strong in terms of coaching that it could have been. But Michael Fulmer has good stuff. And so on his side, I could see where he's like, I got the stuff. I'm just going to go with it. If they hit it, hey, all credit to them. But that was, I think, the wrong game plan to attack Boston that way. And one guy, I'm shocked, doesn't get the 4 fingers up every time he comes up to plate. Every time David Ortiz, from now on, if we ever face Boston again, even in a one-game playoff or another situation, every time he comes up, just throw the 4 fingers in the air, Osmus, let him get on base. The fact that he was able to get 2 more home runs at Comerica Park and pad his stats in terms of his dominance hitting against the Tigers, I was shocked. I was literally shocked because this is a guy that dominates you. He has a track record of crushing you at inopportune times, and he was able to get 2 more home runs over on the weekend.
Yeah, I think you gotta stop pitching to that guy.
Or plunk him once, plunk him.
Yeah, maybe just throw out a guy and just be like, yeah, this is your going away present. Fulmer getting rocked, and tell me if you think I'm wrong with this. Everyone has been comparing him to Verlander in his rookie season, and I've even heard that Verlander has kind of taken Michael Fulmer under his wing and kind of started to coach him and being that mentor type player. Is this the pitcher that we want mentoring Michael Fulmer? Because Justin Verlander, as good as he's been, he is a stubborn pitcher. And how long has it taken him to adjust his game once he lost the ability to go 98, 99 miles per hour into the 8th and 9th innings of games? Is Verlander the guy that we really want mentoring Michael Fulmer and telling him to power through and to know your stuff and trust it and just throw it against the best teams out there? And because I think there's something to be said about being confident in what you're throwing, but I think you also should be smart. You should know you should have a game plan going in, and that game plan shouldn't just be, I'm just going to try and overmatch these guys.
I think what everyone needs to look at and pay attention to is how Fulmer responds to the game versus Boston. And he's responded pretty well, even to games where he's started off pretty poorly. I would say Michael Fulmer is going to learn from experience. And I think Justin Verlander is as good a guy as any to mentor him because he's the guy that maybe most resembles what Fulmer's doing. Justin Verlander features a great fastball early in his career. He had, a lot of bravado. And yeah, you realize that he hasn't really mixed in a whole lot of other pitches, but don't you give him a little bit of credit for his resurgence in the last year? He's put up some solid numbers, and, he's kind of lived up to the hype when he came out and said, hey, I'm going to be dominant again. Now, he hasn't been truly dominant, but he's way better than he has been in the last 2 years.
Yeah, but 13-7 is a far cry from when he was winning Cy Youngs. And I agree. I'm not terribly upset about him trying to mentor Fulmer because who knows? Fulmer, I think at his high point, yeah, he could be the next Justin Verlander for us. He could be a staple in our rotation for years to come. But who knows? He may flame out in a year or two. I mean, how many times have we seen pitchers have a good season and then they're gone the next? Look at Andre Galarraga. Yeah. He's gone.
Galarraga is
Jair
gone. Jair Jurgens. Names from the past. But I will say this. Michael Fulmer seems to me like a guy that is going to put in the extra work, is going to be a guy that's going to study hitters, is going to learn from his mistakes. I don't see a guy that's going to flame out. I like his stuff. I like his bravado. A guy like that has, really high upside, and, barring a significant injury, I think he's got the good stuff, and I think that he'll learn from that kind of performance in the future. He better, because if he doesn't, and he is stubborn, and then I do think that quality teams are going to take advantage of him, and he's going to get rocked more. So he can't be stubborn in this league. You got to be willing to make adjustments, or you're going to get hit. Quality teams can hit fastballs. Quality teams can hit Justin Verlander, as you've seen. And that's what we always say is, can you get out of the early innings? Can you avoid the in that game?
The early home runs.
Yeah, I went to a night out with my brother-in-law when Justin Verlander played. It was Kansas City, and he gave up those home runs, and they didn't support him. That you saw in that game. He was cruising along, doing his thing, but then what did he do to the guys that crushed the home runs? They were grooved. I mean, those guys just slammed the hell out of the baseball because you get into an advantageous hitters count. You know what's coming. Justin Verlander's stuff, I believe, in certain moments is hittable.
Oh, yeah, and I think people know what he's going to throw. And for Fulmer, overall, for the long run, the next couple games isn't what I'm going to be looking at, and that's not what I'm worried about. What I want to see from Michael Fulmer, and it's maybe way too early, is next year. I want to see him come back next year and continue this run, or even get better. Which is, I think that's kind of hard to say, to want a guy to get better from this, because you're almost looking at you're talking about a Cy Young candidate then at that point. But only time will tell. I'm off the train on the Tigers.
Not yet. Wait till this week, another week. Watch them in the series versus Minnesota. Take it series by series. I think they're going to probably win 2 of 3 from Minnesota. I think it's safe to say that. They played well. I do believe the pitching matchups are going to be okay. 2 of 3 is fair versus Minnesota, in my opinion.
I think there's a possibility they could only win 1 of 3. Let's see if we come back again. We're playing the game again. What do the Tigers need to do for me to be more optimistic next week?
You know what they need to do? They need to win every series here on out. Try to win 2 of 3 the rest of the way.
I think we said that last time, is that they need to win series. They don't need to sweep. They just need to win series. And
we need Cleveland to start losing games. I thought they were going to honestly lose on Sunday. They came back and defeated Toronto.
The Minnesota, that's a team that you should take advantage of. Looking at who you're going up against with the LA Angels, you should be able to take advantage of them. Granted, you do have 1 game with Anibal Sanchez. And then the White Sox, you get Shields and Sale, but Shields isn't what he's been in past seasons.
And you've had success against Sale earlier this year, so it's a situation where if you get the horses back and you play a better brand of baseball, and maybe Justin Upton puts it together, then you might have a chance of getting on a run. We're still waiting.
For me to be really excited about this team, by next week, they should go 5-2.
Okay, 5-2. Let's see if they do it.
But more than likely, what I think they'll be, they're probably going to go somewhere between 3-4 or 4-3. And they're going to do just enough to keep people's hopes up. And it's going to all ride down to October 2nd.
Okay. Now,
going to the Braves.
Before we talk about Michigan State, we know the college football season is upon us because of what we're hearing, and we'll talk about some of that a little later on in this podcast. So the controversy that arose over the weekend in regards to the Tigers had to do with the Tigers honoring David Ortiz in a pregame ceremony before a game. And so people were like, wait a minute, you have Al Avila on the field, you have Miguel Cabrera, you have Victor Martinez, and you're hugging David Ortiz. You have a picture of David Ortiz celebrating his appearance at Comerica Park during the All-Star game. And I'm like, to me, and I know a lot of fans who voted on our Twitter poll asking whether they felt it was right or wrong, voted that it's classy and it's a good thing to do. But for me, I felt like, why are you honoring a guy that's done so much against you? Why are you honoring a guy that, whether or not you think he's jovial, whether or not now you can high five with him, have a conversation, if you want to send him a present, you want to write him a nice note on the down low, send it to him, or hey, pass it down the hallway, no problem. I don't have a problem with that. But to do it on the field before a game, I just thought like, hey, this is Detroit. We don't need to be doing that kind of stuff. And so I was personally against it. I understand why they did it. Maybe Al Avila has a tie to Dave Dombrowski or something like along those lines. You want to honor that guy. But that guy is the single reason why you lost the series in 2013. He came back, you were up 1-0, and you're up 4 runs. You know, Joakim Benoit's up there, and boom, he hits a grand slam, ties the game, you lose game 2, you go on to lose the series. Why are you honoring this guy? It doesn't make no sense. This is Detroit. I need a little bit more competitive spirit. And hey, you can honor him. Just not publicly.
Yeah, I think part of the reason is, and this may just be me, and this may be the people who don't feel upset about this, is that Boston doesn't really bother me. The Red Sox, if anything, they were, going back to 2004, they were one of the teams who just have never, it took so long for them to finally win another World Series. And yeah, they've had a ton of success within the last decade. Boston isn't the team. They don't bother me. They're the underdogs. If anything, it's the Yankees. The Yankees are the team that I have a problem with. And I understand honoring Mariano Rivera last year. I understand honoring Derek Jeter because he was a Michigan native. I don't have a problem honoring David Ortiz. And when you're talking about honoring those legends, he stopped us from winning a World Series or from going to a World Series. But I think that because he didn't beat us in a World Series, which he never could, that's where I don't have that negativity towards him. Like Sidney Crosby, I will never ever like honor that guy. If whenever his retirement comes, I hope if they were to do anything at Joe Louis that everyone would boo.
See, it goes to fan reactions. Most fans cheered too, which was a little bit surprising in that, David Ortiz is the guy that's directly hurt you. Now I could see where you're coming from in terms of the level. It was only in the ALCS, but he did damage against you that series. So what I'm saying is
he's never spoke bad about Detroit. It's those guys who
do you remember any situation where a Lions team, a Pistons team, or a Red Wings team honored somebody before a game with a little ceremony with a plaque or anything like that before a game? In terms of maybe not just stopping the game and just giving applause or an announcement, but to have your general manager there and to hug the opponent is just, I think, a little bit too much. You want to honor him, give him a little, hey, congratulations to David Ortiz, his last appearance at Comerica Park. We wish him great success in his retirement. Let all the fans applaud. But to have a picture opportunity, a photo op in your hometown, it's just for me as a competitor, I wasn't down with it. I give it a big thumbs down. And I looked at it and I'm just like, why? You can do all that. What I'm saying is you can honor David Ortiz all you want as an organization. Give him a nice something, from the organization that costs money. Give him something, whatever you want behind the scenes. But what I'm saying is on the field, in front of everybody, it just wasn't for me.
Well, I think Detroit fans, I would say that they adopted the Boston Red Sox. When they took it to the Yankees and they won that championship, Boston. I got caught up when I was younger when they won the World Series, and it's like that's a team that's a story. That's a great story that they won. And I think you have a lot of Boston fans here in the metropolitan Detroit area.
Okay, so you're a little bit okay with it. You're more along the lines of, hey, if it costs me a title or a ring directly in a series, then you're a little bit more edgy about it. Whereas in the ALCS, it's no big deal. I still sting for me.
Or if there's beef, like the Avalanche. I don't ever want to honor Patrick Waugh, and you do have to look at the greatness of some of the players. Jordan, I think that's a guy who the Pistons, they definitely hated, but you cannot deny that he's the best player ever to play the game. And I think it'll come to a time when LeBron James, when he retires, that he may be looked at as one of the best players. And I could probably see a similar situation for that. Even though he had that game where he scored all the points in overtime, I think the fans can't deny greatness.
Fans can't deny greatness, but I can. I can say, David Ortiz, I hope you get injured the rest of the way and become a team that falls off the wild card chase so the Tigers can get an opportunity to get to the postseason and lose another series so that Brad Ausmus can get fired.
Good luck with that. And I don't want to hate on Vinny, but Vinny he actually is behind Brad Ausmus now.
Oh, is he?
He's like, oh man, he never had a bullpen.
Injuries. He's an excuse maker for Ausmus.
I feel like me and Vinny have flip flopped now. Last year I was all on giving Brad Ausmus another shot, and I understand that now. But
if I'm Brad Ausmus, I'm using it. Hey man, half my squad is out. You've seen that. Hey, even when they were out, we still were treading water and above 500. He has an excuse, but he has to get to the postseason, no doubt about it. If he doesn't, and they bring him back, you're just going to alienate another section of the fans. I think a lot of the fans are off the bandwagon right now. They're just not willing to fully jump off. They got one foot out the door because they know they want to get back quick. Should they turn around? But you have to. If you ask the question, are you on the bandwagon or off? Directly, not halfway out. I'm saying I'm off.
I'm off too, and I really honestly believe and I will preface this by saying it: if there is a manager that you think can take this team to the playoffs next year, Brad Ausmus should be gone regardless next year. If they make it to the wild card, then lose, or if they make it to that first divisional series and lose, Brad Austin should be gone.
Exactly. Now, I don't want to get it twisted. I watch each and every game. I'm passionate. I want them to win with all my heart. I don't have a B team or a C team. When I say I'm off the bandwagon, it literally means that I don't believe this is a winning team, and I don't believe the ultimate prize is upon us this year. And with the $200 million payroll and with where you're at in the organizational status, you can't be like that. You have to be, have a lot of momentum going your way, and I just don't see it. But I hope I'm wrong. No doubt about it. I hope I can sit here and have people tweet me and say, hey, you said they weren't ever going to win, and they come back and win the World Series. That'd be awesome.
I hope I'm wrong, too, because I've been saying it all year, and I was getting to that point where I was ready to admit that, hey, I was wrong. But all the facts support what I say. I'm not lying to you people.
Exactly. Follow the facts, follow the numbers.
I'm done with baseball. So happy football.
Let's turn our attention to college football and what the hell we saw with the first AP poll coming up next on the Motor City Sports Rant on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. Doc here for Fanatic U, Detroit Sports official outfitter and the official outfitter of the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. If you're a fan of the Pistons, Lions, Tigers, Red Wings, Michigan State, and you want to represent Detroit or your favorite college team, no better outfitter to check out than fanaticu.com. Go visit Fanatic U for all your Detroit sports needs. Check them out. Great customer service. 6 locations all across Metro Detroit. The stores are awesome. Friendly service. If you have a need for anything at all regarding Detroit sports, check out Fanatic U. I bet you walk away feeling satisfied. Detroit Sports official outfitter and a great sponsor of the Detroit Sports Podcast Network, fanaticu.com.
Flooded Rolex at the Grammy Awards. They still selling dope, that's those Miami boys. Killers everywhere, it ain't no place to run. Forgive me for my wrongs, I have just begun. Ain't no mercy, ain't no mercy. Got that purple Lamborghini lurking.
Motor City Sports Rant, Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
What was that we were just exposed to?
That was Skrillex featuring Rick Ross, man. Get pumped, Purple Lamborghini. That was a song from off the Suicide Squad soundtrack.
Oh, did you see that movie?
I did. It was okay.
How many crowns you give it?
Out of 5, I'd give it a 3.5.
3.5 crowns, huh?
It wasn't a superhero movie. That's the thing. It was an action movie, and there was a lot of things wrong that I felt that they didn't do right. Like you would assume from all the advertisement you saw that, and there's all this hype about Jared Leto being the next Joker. Spoiler alert, he was hardly in the movie. I think somebody said that he had about 7 minutes of total screen time, which what I saw of him, he actually did a pretty decent job. I would have loved to see more or have him be a bigger part of the story, but he basically was just used as basically just filler and something to move along the story of Harley Quinn.
Okay. You know how I know it's time for college football?
How?
Turn on the radio dial, and people are starting to kind of use those words again. Little brother. Which rivalry is biggest?
I already I had a conversation over the weekend. I went to dinner or to lunch with my father-in-law and brother-in-law, and topic turned to sports. Talked about the Tigers, and then I talked about I just threw it out there because my brother-in-law is a Michigan fan. I'm like, so Michigan, do you think they can live up to the hype? It gets very passive aggressive between me and him when we start talking about Michigan and Michigan State.
How did he respond to that?
I was like, oh, they could be good. And it always goes to, and he's like, oh yeah, I'm just glad football's back. And, I love my favorite games. I remember the game where they were down by 3 touchdowns and then they won it in triple overtime. I'm like, yeah, I remember that game. Like, I like the last year's game and the last 7 out of 8 years games. So it always goes to history versus what just happened.
But don't you think now most Michigan fans, they are entertained by Jim Harbaugh? They like the fact that he's hyping up the program to levels that are drawing attention that we've never really seen before to that program. And now they go, okay, the entertaining part is over. We're upon September. It's the fall. We know he's got to beat Iowa State and Ohio State. He's got to win those games. They know it. Jim Harbaugh knows it. The fans know it. and it's time for him to put up on the field. I mean, the show that he's putting on is to draw attention to Michigan, to try his absolute best to boost recruiting and to draw awareness to the program that he's trying to build. I get all that. Whether you agree or not, it's debatable, but he is a master at marketing the University of Michigan. And now, though, you have to ask, and we've talked about it before we started today, you have to ask, is it something where the fact that Jim Harbaugh is doing that is completely swallowing up Michigan State and not allowing people to really recognize and appreciate what the hell Michigan State has done? They're coming off of 3 straight seasons with a top 10 final ranking. They were in the college football playoff last year. They
got blown out.
38
Derrick Henry is scoring another touchdown on the Spartans as we talk.
Yeah, and Connor Cook is missing another wide receiver as we speak. But it was the national champion eventually, so what are you going to do? They were the best team in college football. You could have had a better performance, and it would have been nicer. Maybe it would have drawn more respect had you made it a more competitive game. Maybe the program now at Michigan State would be looked at in a better light.
I feel better losing in the college football playoff the way that we did than going to a meaningless bowl and beating a Florida team that was severely hampered. They didn't have their starting quarterback.
No doubt about it. You were in the dance for an opportunity to win it all. Under these guidelines, if you're not in the dance, you can't win it all. So you had a chance. You didn't perform, but we were talking about it, and I brought up the point. Do you think that with what Jim Harbaugh has done in the last couple off seasons and all the antics, has he really done enough to kind of dwarf the shine from Michigan State?
It's so hard. It's so hard to ask a Michigan State fan and for us to be impartial with this, because I do kind of feel like that he has this gigantic personality. And I honestly, if you ask everyone who says that Michigan has a chance to win the national title this year, I don't see it. Tell me a player that will lead them to a national championship. I don't think you can. You can't point to Jabril Peppers and say that linebacker / safety is going to lead us to the national championship.
What about
Jake Butt is going to lead us to the national championship? No, he's not. What's O'Corn? Russell, what's his first name? John O'Corn? Whoever. Corn on the cob. He's going to lead you to the national championship. No, it's going to be Jim Harbaugh. He's going to be if they do have a successful season, it's going to be because of him.
A good system, a good offense, a good defense.
No, it's going to be literally just because of Jim Harbaugh.
Just Jim Harbaugh walks on the field and touches these guys and is has the coaching spirit and the Jesus in khakis persona. He can will them to a national title on his own.
I honestly feel like that's the only reason that they are getting as much hype as they are. Because it's Jim Harbaugh.
No, I would say, honestly, if you look at it objectively, they're returning offensive starters, that guys that they can surround a new quarterback with to do some things. Their wide receiving core is relatively intact.
J.U. Chesson and Amara Darboh? They don't do anything for me. Who's going to throw him the ball?
A lot of people are saying now Spite might be in the league going forward.
What's he done?
No, exactly.
Has he gone into Ohio State and won a game there?
Just from afar, I have a hard time putting a Michigan team in national title contention with a first-year starting quarterback. Exactly. I'm like, when has that kind of happened? When a guy in his first year leads you all the way down? When has a Michigan quarterback in his first year led you to a national title?
No,
it's not likely.
I do fully believe, though, that Michigan will be undefeated going into Michigan State.
It's fair to say, because they set up a cupcake schedule, no doubt about it.
They have the Hawaii, UCF, Colorado, and then they play all the cupcakes of the Big Ten: Penn State, Wisconsin, Rutgers, and Illinois. So they should be 7-0, and probably in the top. They should be in the top 5 at this point. And then you roll into Michigan State, and that's going to be the first test for them.
Now, I agree with you in terms of the fact that Michigan and Jim Harbaugh has done enough in terms of marketing to try and really boost their program. Look what happens. First, Associated Press preseason top 25 was released on Sunday, and Michigan checked in at number 7 with one person voting them number 1, and Michigan State comes in ranking number 12. So with that, you go, Michigan State in the past few seasons has been dominant against Michigan. Now, last year you say, well, it was in Ann Arbor, and Michigan did a really good job for 59 minutes and a half to win the game. They just didn't finish the job. If you just look at the track record in the last 5 years and you go, okay, who's returning? Who has the opportunity to do a good job? I would say the gap should not be 5. I would say if Michigan's going to be ranked 7, Michigan State should be ranked 8 or 9, in my opinion. They should be ranked a couple spots higher, but I understand and respect the differences in that you lost a ton on the offensive line. Michigan State also has a returning, quarterback, but he's going to be a first-year starter. But Tyler O'Connor has been in the system before. He's played a little bit in some marquee games, but he, again, is going to be put in the fire now in his first season. And so you have a lot of question marks. You lost 3/5 of your offensive line. You've lost a lot of talent at wide receiver. And so there's a question mark there. But what I like is, and when we look at this question, I go, you know what? I like substance over style the majority of the time, but I also like a little bit of swagger. I would like if Michigan State were to come out and do a little bit of self-promotion, a little bit of hype, a little bit of, hey, trash talking towards Michigan, but they don't. Their stance and Mark D'Antonio's stance is, listen, here's the stats. You can dance. You can hype up your program all you want. You can draw all the attention to yourself all you want. Hey, let's look at the win-loss record here in the last couple of years. Hey, the last couple of years, we've won bowl games. We've been, an opportunity to win a Rose Bowl. Michigan State will always say that they were in the college football playoff first before Michigan. We were in the college football playoff in a season where Jim Harbaugh coached. When you look at Michigan State's program right now, they are much more substance over style. And sometimes if you're not hyping yourself up too much, then you can be, maybe looked at less favorably in polls, or when you're talked about, you're less sexy. I have no problem with that, as long as you keep winning. And hey, what do we always say, Jason? Where do you win football games? The trenches. Michigan State has been awesome and dominant in the trenches. And you're bringing back a guy in Malik McDowell that is a guy that could anchor a defense. And so, hey, all we got to say is, listen, it's nice once in a while, and I'm a WWE fan. I understand the guys that can talk on the mic like an Enzo and Cass and can bring attention to yourself. I also like guys that, like a Dean Ambrose, that maybe aren't as gifted on the mic, but can put on a great performance anytime they go out there. And so in relation to sports, Michigan State, when they go out there, they're going to be well coached. They're going to run the hell out of the football. They're going to play smash mouth football, and they're going to have a decent level of success. Are they going to win 10 games this year? I'm leaning towards 8 or 9 with a little bit of a fallback.
And that's the thing with Michigan and Michigan State fans. I think Michigan State fans, we're big enough to admit that we may not.
We're new money. We're newfound success. We're new money. That's all it is. We're not the old establishment. We're not the old guard. We're not Alabama. We're not USC. We may never even get to that level. We're not that. We're newfound money, baby. But hey, it's nice to have, but we're not the establishment.
But what reason, though, outside of Jim Harbaugh, do Michigan fans have to believe that they're really in contention to win a national championship?
10 wins with Rudock. Don't you see what they did last year? They had a good year, a decent year. Now, they were ultra conservative on offense, and they did some things with the talent that they had. But don't you think, though, based on Harbaugh's success, he's going to have 9-10 wins every year. He's going to be judged on whether he wins versus Ohio State and Michigan State and wins the national title. So,
and what's Michigan State got to do to get this sense of entitlement?
One thing.
What?
Starts with the U. Undefeated season. That is it. That literally is it.
So you have to go and win a national title.
You have to win the national title and go undefeated. That's all you got to do. I mean, it's super hard to do, and I just uttered it right out of my mouth, but is it likely? No, because, in terms of football, you turn over talent each and every year. But in order for Michigan State to get on that level, they got to continue, and they're starting to get higher ranked athletes in terms of recruiting. Michigan sells itself. Everyone knows it. You go to Florida, and you wear a block M, the big block M, and you go to Florida, everyone knows who you are. You go to Louisiana, you go to Vegas, you go to California, Washington, everybody knows the big block M. But everybody's starting to know what the big block S looks like, and they know nationally what we're capable of. And so all Michigan State's got to do is find that one magical season and go out there, and hell, if you don't go undefeated, win the damn title.
Do you think it's possible? Is there any chance that Michigan State has that could be this year?
No.
Not at all? 0%?
I am a guy, and if you listen to this podcast in the daily shows, I'm a guy that underbelieves and hopes for people to overdeliver. Okay? I can't sit here today and predict that Michigan State is going to get into the football playoff. You have question marks. You have a new quarterback coming in. How's he going to handle the big pressure? You have new offensive linemen. How are they going to handle?
It's a quarterback that we've already seen with the big pressure against Ohio State in Ohio State.
But when you're the guy and you got to do it week in, week out with a new offensive line and different talent and different running backs and different wide receivers that you're throwing to, that's a little bit different. So I'm looking to say, and I believe that it's fair to assess that in the big games, maybe versus Notre Dame, in the big games versus Michigan or Ohio State, you could say, hey, you could have some doubt that they're going to win it.
Now, give me a percentage. So, is there a possibility? Are you just saying that there's
5% they win the national title?
5% chance?
5% chance.
I don't think I'm that crazy. I think if you get past Notre Dame in week 2, you have a pretty favorable schedule. You don't have it's like Michigan. We do have Notre Dame on our week 2, but we got Wisconsin. Wisconsin will be tough, but Indiana, BYU, Northwestern, and then Michigan and Ohio State are going to be our 2 other biggest games. We play
home.
Both of those at home.
It's a nice, favorable schedule. You really have an opportunity to really believe that, and you know why? Because Michigan could come into East Lansing and Spartan Stadium number 1 or 2 ranked in the country. So that victory in and of itself could boost you way up in the polls. Should Michigan State be able to conquer Michigan? Hey, it's not. Listen, I wouldn't be shocked and say 0, but with a quarterback that doesn't have experience and a lot of guys that left, then you have some question marks. But if they do it again, that'd be awesome. I'd be thrilled.
I really think it's going to be interesting, and I'm not saying that they're going to go undefeated this year, but they have a lot of stuff set up that the possibility is there. That if they play in, it's going to be they'd have to play perfect. They would literally they can't have one of those hiccup games against Nebraska. Where they just completely let a wide receiver go down the sideline. The college football playoff is moving towards there has to be no question that you deserve to be in the playoffs. I think you looked at the teams that were in last year. There really was no question. Michigan State deserved to be in there.
But listen, it's fun. Michigan State is interesting the way they're going to start the year. They're going to play a garbage team first game. They got a week off, and then they're going to play Notre Dame. I think that's actually not a bad way to start. In terms of preparation versus a team that has been successful against you in the past. Have a little bit of a break after game 1.
And it's a huge game. It's playing at Notre Dame. It's really going to be a big test to see where this team is. And I will, as a fan, I will love seeing them, what they do September 17th at Notre Dame. And then at the end of the season, where they're at playing against Michigan, playing against Ohio State, and see what the difference is.
How many wins you got for State?
How many games do they play?
I think 12.
10.
10-2? Okay, that's not bad. I think I had them going 9-3, maybe 9-3, 10-2.
I think 10 is, I think that's like the max. Because I really think, I wouldn't be surprised if they lose to Notre Dame. I really want them to beat them because I dislike Notre Dame, but I just think going in there, they're probably going to lose that game. I don't know. Ohio State looks pretty unbeatable this year.
Yeah, Phil Steele was on the Doc and Jock podcast. He's got his rankings, unfortunately, number 1 in the East, Ohio State, number 2, Michigan, number 3, Michigan State. Phil Steele.
I'm not convinced by Michigan.
Okay.
I see Michigan, I think they're going to lose 3 games, and it's going to be Michigan State, Iowa, and Ohio State. All games on the road. And there's definitely the possibility that they can win those games, but until they prove to me that they have what it takes to win those big games, I'm not going to believe it.
Now, before we end the podcast, we have to definitely check out the Detroit Lions and the struggles they had in Game 2. Game 1, you saw some things that were a little bit of concern. You thought maybe they would tidy it up, and we saw it again in Game 2.
Preseason.
Yeah, I know you're that. But you're not concerned?
This is not for me.
You're not concerned, Rudock v. Orlovsky? Orlovsky's now thrown 2 pick sixes in back-to-back weeks.
Orlovsky is a hot garbage. I don't understand why we re-signed him. Really, probably only for the familiarity with the system. I have no issue giving Jake Rudock the reins if Matt Stafford were to go down.
So for you, you've been really taking a hands-off approach with the preseason, going with the attitude that a lot of the journalists have and a lot of the fans have is just like, hey, man, chill out. It's the preseason. Who cares?
I watched a little bit, and just because it's watching football again, and I love football.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that I would want to see, I want to see more of the running backs.
Yep.
And what I want to see in Saturday's preseason game, apparently there's talk that Mir Abdullah might get into the game. I really hope that they just wait until he's 100% healthy. I don't want him to come in and get hurt because of he wants to play in a preseason game. But what I would want to see in Game 3 is fucking Theo Riddick out there with the number one offense.
Yeah.
Put Zach Zenner out there. Put Dwayne Washington. Because I want to see what those guys can do. It pisses me off to see Theo Riddick there because I think he has the possibility of being a decent running back. He could, but he hasn't done anything. So I want to see what Zenner and Washington can do. Can they actually play with the first team offense, or are they just the benefit of playing against scrubs on other teams?
Okay, I get what you're saying. You're like, okay, I'm going to peek in. I'm not going to take it too seriously. You know everything's vanilla. But you do also have to recognize in the preseason we're going to see the Lions keep 3 quarterbacks. Because if they don't, maybe Rudock gets waived or maybe he doesn't even make the team. I think he'll make the team, but they might keep 3 quarterbacks, it looks like.
I think he'll make the team, but he'll probably be the third quarterback, which is always
the guy who doesn't get started.
Yeah, he doesn't dress unless like there's an injury within like the first 2 quarters.
Exactly. So I get what you're saying. Pump the brakes a little bit, but you got to be concerned when you see the Lions offense get to the red zone and Taylor Decker whiffs a block and it costs you points, or the second straight game where, you have Cole Wick and he's a young cat and he's trying to block a solid defender. And since this guy gets up there in Stafford's grill and plows him, and again, Stafford loses a football, that's a little bit concerning because some people are starting to question whether Stafford might make it through this year upright.
It's not concerning because it's only preseason.
Mm-hmm.
All that matters is, can they do this?
Walk away healthy, get in, get out, walk away healthy.
Can you do this come week 1, going into Indianapolis?
September 11th.
Can you protect Matthew Stafford? I mean, how much of it is also teams are the Bengals are a really good defense and they're a blitzing defense. How much of that is that we're running a vanilla offense and they're just getting by our guys? I don't read a ton into it. I just want them to get healthy. I think, and I'd rather them, if these are true mistakes, I'd rather them make the mistakes right now than in week 4. And then Matt Stafford gets blindsided and is out for the rest of the year. And we're relying on Jake Rudock.
Okay, quick hitters real fast before we get out of here. Olympics, thumbs up, thumbs down, your overall impression. Did Lockie ruin it for you?
It didn't ruin me. It was so weird. Like when I first saw the report, it was definitely strange that his mom was coming out, and he probably regrets so much that it comes down that he lied to his mom.
It comes down to that he was drunk and he probably misremembered everything or misinterpreted everything. Do you think he truly lied?
I don't know.
Or embellished?
I think he may have lied because all this, they're playing the card that, we didn't understand. But I think you kind of have to. Otherwise, you just lied.
Are you aware that on Monday he lost 3 sponsors and cost himself approximately $1 million?
The dude has made his money. I don't think he really cares. And more than likely, all this will clear up. I mean, isn't this his last Olympic Games anyways?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter to that guy. As long as he doesn't face any jail time, which have you heard anything? Is he really going to face anything? Like
he could write a check and clear the problem up pretty quickly.
And that's what the one swimmer did. He paid $11,000 so he could go home. So it's like, whatever. This is going to blow over just like the Olympics. The Olympics we're here for 2 weeks and now we're going to forget about it for another 3.5 years.
U.S. men's Olympic team, thumbs up, thumbs down. You care?
The basketball?
Mm-hmm.
Dude, that was just
dominance.
No
storyline.
Dominance, but there's such a mess of a team, though.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen teams in the past that there's cohesive, but I think this was just such a mishmash of they're just throwing the all-stars onto the team. I think the men's basketball in the Olympics is just a joke. And I mean, I'd even say that the women's basketball is a joke too. I really think that they should do what soccer does, which they have under 23, but you can have three veterans on those teams. So, and I think you'd still get a really good Team USA, but then you just don't have the stacked. You don't see these stacked lineups. Well, it was ridiculous.
Real quickly, news came. Lions have released wide receiver Andre Caldwell, so he will not be on the team. He was expected to potentially compete for a backup job, but he will not be with the Lions.
That's surprising.
Andre Caldwell, cut. Okay, one last thing. A lot of tweets, a lot of buzz regarding U.S. Amateur, the Michigan golfer. You followed it all? Thumbs up, thumbs down?
I can take it or leave it.
Yeah, I didn't even watch a single hole. I knew Joe Buck was in town. Brad Faxon, I think they played a round early. I did follow the tweets a little bit, knowing that I think Saturday's semifinal match went 21 holes. And like usual, the Michigan guy came up short. But it was a nice story, in all seriousness, because we're both Sparties. In all seriousness, he drew attention, and he had an emotional press conference at the end of the event saying, hey, he drew some ticket sales, and it was a nice story. I think he lost in a very tight match versus the eventual winner. So, hey, all credit to him. Yeah, it's just not for me. I don't care about the U.S. Amateur.
Yeah.
You ever go to Oakland Hills and walk it?
I have not.
You ever want to?
I would play if it wasn't super expensive, but golf for me, it's really I'll only watch on Sundays if at all, and then I'll watch the big matchups.
High school football, thumbs up, thumbs down for you? Do you follow that at all?
I like high school football. I don't religiously follow it. I'm not like the state champs guys who they list off.
Whoa, they're hardcore,
dude. They're hardcore. Their shows are kind of crazy. Like I know I've listened in a couple times where they just rattle off the scores in a row, which it's a little ridiculous. But I definitely get into it when the playoffs end. I have a little pride in my my hometown team, even though they're not that good. Okay. Shout out to East Detroit Shamrocks.
Yes, sir. Oh man, the Shamrocks. Psh,
they're not good.
They're not that good at all.
I remember my freshman year, they made it to the playoffs, or no, they just missed the playoffs.
Oh.
And then I think they finished that season with 3 straight losses. All they needed to do was win one and get in. And then they didn't win a game until the year that I was out of high school.
A couple years where they didn't win a game. Yeah.
It was so bad.
Oh, man. All right, sir. Great podcast. Enjoyed spending time with you, rapping sports. We'll try and see if the Detroit Tigers or Lions can continue some type of positive momentum, and we're inching ever so close to fantasy football, the start of the regular season. It's all good, man. So definitely check out Jason's Fantasy Football Show, gaining traction each and every week. Every Friday comes out the Fantasy Nerds podcast on this fine network.
Well, until next week, I am Jason Jarvie. Follow me on Twitter at Jarvie the King. He's John Macaroon. Peace out.
And you can't teach that.
Stop that. Stop it. Yeah! Go Tigers! Go! Or if I'm the Lions, go Lions! Yeah!
Okay, nice idiot. F you. Bye-bye.
Good day, sir. I said good day.
All right. Take care now. Bye-bye then.
Loser.